Discover the incredible, life-changing ways 10,000 medieval peasants throve during a famine year. Eliza stood at her doorstep, the oppressive heat clinging to her skin like a wet blanket. With her 3 children nestled at her feet, their laughter barely drowning out the whisper of the wind through the sparse fields, she felt the world around her crack. Westridge, her once bustling village of camaraderie, now felt raw and ragged. The golden grains that used to sway in the breeze were now withered and brown, and the cheerful cries of children were replaced by desperate murmurs of hunger. Each day, Eliza faced the reality of an unyielding famine, her hands calloused from tilling soil that bore no fruit. Each grain of wheat was precious, each meal, a battle against despair. Her heart ached, remembering her father, a man whose resilience taught her about the power of community. "Together, we thrive," he always said with a smile that radiated warmth. But now, that warmth was fading fast, almost obscured by the bitterness that gripped the villagers. The summer sun painted the market square with harsh shadows as Eliza gathered her courage to barter the last of their food. Around her, shadowy glances exchanged between neighbors told tales of suspicion. The wealthier landowners hoarded grain, believing that solitude was the only path to salvation. Eliza's efforts to share what little they had met with hostility. Today, a rumble of accusations broke the fragile air. The Blackwoods, once friends, pointed fingers at Eliza, accusing her of hoarding. Her heart sank like a stone. "This is madness," she wanted to scream. How could they doubt her? As the glares settled upon her like a weight, Eliza felt the stirrings of resolve. She envisioned a plan, a grain-sharing network. It was crazy. Impossible, perhaps. But desperation often bred the wildest hopes. Yet, as she presented her idea, the jeers echoed louder, drowning her spirit in disbelief. Faces that once glowed with kindness now contorted into masks of judgment. Eliza's fists clenched. The monthly meeting loomed ominously on the horizon. Would they all succumb to suspicion? Could she help reunite them? With a trembling heart, she arrived, the air thick with tension. The chatter of villagers raised questions, each accusation striking deeper than the last. Just when it felt like the final nail was being driven into their community's coffin, a memory sparked within her. Her father's stories of kindness washed over her. His love and humility must live on, she thought, urgency pulsing in her veins. Standing tall, Eliza spoke, her voice shaking with emotion. "My father dreamed of a Westridge where we share burdens." Tears brimming in her eyes, she fought against the tide of resentment, invoking memories of laughter and support that once thrived in their village. "Can we not return to that?" she pleaded, her voice rising with hope. A flicker of recognition brushed through the crowd as the air thickened with longing for unity. But just then, a sour voice broke through. "Was it possible to mend trust after such deep wounds? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Hope mingled with fear, challenging their resolve. Eliza stood amidst this shifting tide, her heart racing as she realized the choice lay ahead of them all. Would they choose to rebuild their bonds, or would suspicion reign like a bitter harvest? As the murmurs filled the air, the weight of uncertainty settled, leaving Eliza's family and the entire village at a precarious crossroads. Eliza's heart pounded in her chest. The room grew heavy with tension as the crowd shifted, torn between memories of friendship and the gnawing desperation of their current reality. She could feel the weight of their stares. Some looked on with a spark of understanding, while others remained cold and distant. Then, from the back of the hall, an elderly woman stood. It was Agatha, a widow who had once shared stories of her youth with Eliza's father. "I remember days like these." Agatha's voice quivered, and the room quieted. "When we were all in this together, there was warmth in sharing even the smallest bit. The flicker of recognition spread through the room like ripples in water. A few heads nodded, but many remained fixed on their own pain. Eliza seized on this moment. Agatha is right. We've forgotten who we are, and worse, what we mean to each other. She took a step forward, her voice steadier now. It's not just food that binds us, it's solidarity, hope, and love. She watched as eyes began to glisten, a light breaking through the somber fog. It won't be easy, Eliza continued, gathering strength. We have to trust each other again. It's okay to feel scared or angry, but let that fire ignite a passion for change, not distrust. Murmurs began to grow, thoughts igniting in the minds of her neighbors, and then, from the corner, Samuel Blackwood, once a close friend now a bitter rival, scoffed loudly. You think sharing will make things better? You're living in a dream. His harshness cut through Eliza's fragile hope, and the room fell silent again. Eliza felt a surge of emotion. She had to counter Samuel's bitter words. Dreams are built from the foundation of unity. Look around you, look at your children. They deserve a community, not a battle for crumbs. She glanced at her own little ones, their innocent faces watching, filled with hope and anxiety, that seemed to stir something in the crowd. Voices began to rise against Samuel's skepticism. We want to try. A voice shouted from the back. Another added, we've lost too much already. We have to do something. Eliza felt her heart swell as she saw the flicker of determination igniting in their eyes. The air became charged with a newfound energy. Maybe they could rediscover what it meant to stand together. What if they organized a communal harvest? If everyone contributed even the smallest amount, they might actually prevail against this famine. Eliza stepped back, feeling the moment shift, aware they needed a leader. Let us meet again tomorrow. I'll bring the seeds I've saved. We can share our strength, our resources. Together, we can plant hope and cultivate trust. The applause came slowly, at first a hesitant acknowledgement of her bold idea. But as more villagers joined in, it grew louder and more confident. Hope warmed her heart, replacing the icy fear that had held her back. As they began to disperse, whispers floated through the crowd. Eliza caught snippets of conversation, people discussing the mechanics of a combined effort. Inspiration took root, and she dared to believe they might be turning a corner, but just as she thought the tide might be shifting, a shadow fell over her. Samuel lingered behind, a dark cloud on the brightening horizon. You'll need more than hope to feed these people, Eliza. His voice dripped with sarcasm. What if this fails? Eliza squared her shoulders. Then we'll figure it out together, like family. But deep down, a gnawing question took hold. What if family wasn't enough? The sun dipped low as she walked home, the weight of uncertainty pressing down again. It felt like a fragile moment, balanced on a knife's edge. Would they follow her lead, or would her dreams crumble under distrust once more? Tomorrow would tell. Eliza awoke to the golden light spilling through her window, illuminating the small room she shared with her children. The sun brought warmth, but it could not chase away the cold remnants of doubt that lingered in her heart. Today was the day they would meet again, and the weight of expectations pressed heavy on her shoulders. She dipped her hands into the basin of cold water on the table, splashing her face to wash away the sleepiness and the anxious thoughts swirling in her mind. She had been rehearsing her words all night, but as the minutes ticked closer to the gathering, a new fear began to creep in. What if no one showed up? Outside, the village stirred to life, the sounds of morning mingling with the faint scent of dew. Children laughed as they chased each other, while neighbors exchanged morning greetings. It was a simple, ordinary scene that felt deceptively far from the turmoil they all faced. Eliza stepped outside, taking a deep breath. She would not let fear hold her back. As she walked through the village, a few familiar faces greeted her. Old Mrs. Thompson, who always had a warm smile, invited her in for a cup of tea. Eliza, dear. You look a bit pale. Are you all right? I'm all right, Mrs. Thompson, Eliza replied, managing a smile. "Just a little nervous about today." "Don't be. The village needs your spirit," she encouraged. Her words lingered in Eliza's mind, wrapping around her like a comforting embrace. Soon, she arrived at the meeting place, a clearing by the old oak tree where they had played as children. One by one, villagers began to gather, some smiling, others looking skeptical. Samuel didn't take long to make his presence known. He stood crossed-armed, his scowl as sharp as ever. When she stood before them, the initial murmur of chatter faded, and she could feel their collective gaze, a mix of hope and doubt. It was time to share her vision. "Thank you all for coming. Yesterday, we took a step towards rebuilding trust," Eliza began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Today, I want us to think about our future together. We can't just endure this famine, we can change our fate if we work as a community." A few people nodded, but Samuel interrupted, "And what if it doesn't work? What if this is just another waste of time?" Eliza met his gaze, frustration bubbling inside her. "Samuel, what if it does work? What if, together, we create something beautiful from this mess? We might not have enough to feed us all right now, but imagine if we each gave a little. We could make a garden, a community garden that's ours to share." As she spoke, the energy shifted. Faces began to brighten, some whispered to each other, while others hesitated, considering her words. "But how?" A voice piped up from the back. It was young Anne, her eyes wide, clearly craving a spark to latch onto. "We can pool our resources," Eliza explained, her heart racing as she saw more heads nodding. "We can plant crops together, share knowledge and work side by side. We can teach our children this legacy of unity." "A fine thought," Samuel replied, his tone heavy with irony. "But to risk everything on one idea is sheer folly." Eliza's stomach tightened. She needed to counter his words, but fear of failure gnawed at her. Could this really be done? "We risk more if we do nothing." She shot back, finding strength in her voice. "Let us not allow fear to hold us back. Together, we can make it happen." The crowd buzzed with anxious energy. Slowly, voices rose, excited ideas bursting forth as people began to share their own thoughts on the project. Eliza's pulse quickened. For the first time, she felt like they were coming together as one. Just as conversations became stronger, she noticed a familiar face pushing through the crowd. Agatha, her eyes shining. "I have some seeds saved from my garden." She beamed. "Let us get started, shall we?" A wave of excitement rippled through the villagers. Eliza felt buoyed by their enthusiasm. But the moment was suddenly fractured by a crack of thunder in the distance. Dark clouds began to roll in, threatening to shroud their budding hope. Eliza's heart pounded. Would a storm chase them back into fear, or could this be the catalyst for united action? She glanced up at the darkening sky, uncertainty swelling within her. As the first raindrop fell, she held her breath, trapped between fear and possibility. What choice would they make when the storm hit? Would they scatter like leaves in the wind, or would they stand strong, roots intertwined? Only time would tell. The rain began to patter softly at first, like an uninvited knocker at the door of hope. Eliza could feel the tension in the air, like an electric charge gathering in a storm. The bright faces of her neighbors, just moments before bursting with enthusiasm, now seemed to cloud over, mirroring the sky's somber transformation. With each drop, uncertainty seeped deeper into the gathering. Eliza's fingers clenched the edges of her shawl. Would this rain wash away their courage, or could it nourish the seeds of unity they had just begun to plant? "Listen," she called, raising her voice over the thunder that rumbled like a warning. "We can do this. The rain will help our garden grow stronger. It's a sign. We need to stand together, no matter what the skies throw at us." Some villagers began to fidget under the low, dark clouds. A few exchanged glances filled with doubt. Samuel's scowl deepened as he stepped forward once more, his arms still crossed defiantly. And what if it takes more than rain to change our fate? We need more than just hope, Eliza. Talk is cheap. Hope is what ignites change. She shot back, her voice firm, laced with a stubbornness she didn't know she had. Together, we can create something incredible. Just then, the rain fell harder, a relentless chorus that whipped around them. Agatha, undeterred, stepped beside Eliza, her voice pitched to rally the crowd. If we're to do this, let us do it now. We can't let a little rain steer us away from our dream. Let us gather together and spend this time making plans. Eliza turned, a flicker of admiration lighting within her. Agatha's assurance felt like a warm ember among them, fighting against the damp chill. One by one, others began to nod, a fire igniting once more in their hearts. Children, those ever-hopeful spirits, began to laugh, splashing in puddles as their parents reluctantly let go of their fears. Small giggles transformed into merry shouts of joy. With every joyous shout, Eliza felt her courage strengthen. This was where change began, among the laughter of the young. Let us gather inside the old barn, someone suggested, pointing towards the weathered building that seemed to offer refuge. We can draw up plans and brainstorm how to start. As they hurried towards the barn, Eliza felt something shift. The rain became a backdrop to their unity, a cleansing of their past fears. Inside the dimly lit barn, they huddled close together, warm hearts battling the cool seams of doubt. Okay. So, how do we start our garden? Young Anne asked, her earlier trepidation replaced by excitement. Ideas spilled into the air, from starting with a patch of lettuce to rows of beans, each suggestion building upon the last. Laughter erupted again. They were no longer just a group of villagers, they were growing into a community, stitched together by shared dreams. It was Samuel's silence that surprised Eliza the most. He leaned against a post, watching as the members of the village exchanged ideas. Maybe he was considering their options after all. But just as hope bloomed, the barn doors creaked ominously, startling everyone into a brief hush. The wind picked up, causing a shudder to ripple through the space, drawing attention back to Eliza. Would this galvanizing moment slip through their fingers? Let us not forget, Samuel finally spoke, his tone softer but still wary. We have to prepare for when the storms of life challenge us again, because they will. Eliza swallowed hard, knowing he was right. Yet within her, a flicker of determination burned strong. You're right, Samuel. But let us not allow our fears to overshadow our plans. Let us be ready to face those storms together, rooted in what we build today. As the rain continued to hit the barn roof like a restless drumroll, hearts beat a little faster. Could they truly weather the coming storms both outside and within? The decisions they made here wouldn't just nourish a garden. They had the power to heal a community. And as they began to draft their plans, excitement swirled in the air once more. But there was something deeper stirring, something more fierce than rain or doubt. Eliza felt the weight of change lingering on her shoulders, and with each passing moment, it grew heavier. What would she discover about herself and her community as they began to unearth their shared strength? What lay beyond the first storm's trial, and what if the real challenge hadn't even revealed itself yet? The midnight skies were dark, but underneath, dawn was just beginning to break. Would they see it? The energy inside the barn felt tangible, like a living thing pushing against the walls. Ideas sparked and flared, igniting minds that had been shrouded in worry. Eliza scanned the faces around her, some tired, some apprehensive, yet all filled with a growing ember of hope. She clutched the shawl tighter, feeling the warmth of their unity wrap around her heart. Okay, let us start with what we know. Eliza clapped her hands together to get everyone's attention, the sound echoing in the wooden space. We each have skills. What can we bring to the table? Agatha stepped up first. I can tend to the seedlings. My grandmother taught me how to start a garden back when they first settled here. A murmur of agreement rippled through the villagers. And I have a few tools stashed away in the shed," promised Peter, his eyes fluttering with excitement. "They'll help with tilling the soil." "Great. Keep them coming," Eliza encouraged, her spirit lifting as each villager chimed in. They were talking about more than just vegetables now, they were talking about revival, but as hopeful plans were drawn from the air, Samuel remained still, arms crossed tighter than before. The worry in his eyes wasn't completely gone. "Let us be realistic," he interjected. "We can do all this, but what happens when things go wrong? If the rain washes away our seeds or storms crop up?" Eliza felt her enthusiasm sink slightly. Doubt was creeping back in, threatening to dampen the light that had just ignited. "You're right, Samuel. But what if we prepare for those storms instead of letting fear stop us?" She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. "If we work together, we'll be stronger than the obstacles that come our way." The crowd muttered in agreement, but Samuel's gaze remained skeptical. "Unity is important, but it's the reality that hits hardest. We can't ignore that." Just then, young Anne, who had been listening closely, piped up, "But what if we create a plan to store the seeds? We can build a strong shelter for them, to protect them from too much rain, or too little." A ripple of hope spread among the villagers. They were imagining it. "Yes. A contingency plan," an older woman exclaimed, her voice rising with excitement. "If we prepare for whatever happens, we will stand a better chance." The mood began to shift again, turning from apprehension to determination. Laughter and animated chatter filled the barn as ideas flowed wide and fast. Eliza felt a flicker of pride surge within her. Their unity was beginning to weave a tapestry of resilience, yet amidst the noise, she caught Samuel's lingering gaze. It felt heavy, a mix of concern and admiration. "Samuel," she said softly, approaching him. "It's okay to be afraid, but don't you see? This could be the turning point for all of us, and your voice is so essential in guiding us forward." He looked away for a moment, uncertainty flickering across his features. "I've seen things go wrong too many times." His voice trailed off, and Eliza could feel his struggle between skepticism and hope. As the meeting continued, ideas blended into plans. They discussed how to form a community group for tending the garden, how to maintain open communication in times of challenge, and ways to help each other. Eliza felt lighter. They were not just planning a garden, they were strengthening bonds that had once been frayed and forgotten, but just as they reached a consensus on the first steps, a sudden gust of wind wailed through the barn, rattling the old building like a warning bell. Eliza's heart raced, and she instinctively glanced towards the doors partially open, swinging in rhythm with the wind. "Maybe the storm isn't just one we need to prepare for outside," Samuel voiced quietly, his brow furrowed. "Maybe we need to address the storms within ourselves first." Eliza's heart skipped. What lay beneath the surface? What personal fears and doubts hadn't yet been voiced, lurking beneath the layers of hope and dreams? Before she could respond, a flash of lightning lit up the sky outside, followed by a rolling crash of thunder that vibrated in her bones. "Now's our chance," Agatha shouted over the thunder, rallying the villagers. "If we can weather this storm together, we can weather anything." As spirits lifted, Eliza felt the urgency of Samuel's earlier words shadowing over her. Would they be able to face the real storms life tossed in their path? With each clap of thunder, Eliza felt a resolve hardening within her. This wasn't just about a garden, it was about facing fears head-on and unearthing their true strength, but what would that truly demand of them all? The answers lay hidden in the dark clouds, and a powerful silence filled the barn. Would they rise above the storm together, or would the shadows from within hold them back when they needed each other the most? The thunder rumbled again, the sound echoing like a distant drum roll. The villagers paused, momentarily distracted from their plans. The tension hung in the air, thick with unspoken fears. Eliza stepped back into the circle of light, finding her footing among the uncertainty. "Listen." She raised her voice above the din. We're in this together. Every single one of us brings something valuable. What if we share our stories? Let us speak our truth so we can stand together stronger. Samuel's brow furrowed, but curiosity flickered in his eyes. The idea seemed to resonate with some. A couple of heads nodded. All right, Agatha said, her voice wavering slightly. I guess I can go first. When I was a girl, my family lost everything in a flood. We didn't have a farm anymore, but we found ways to survive. We forged alliances with other families. We shared meals and helped each other rebuild. The barn filled with quiet understanding, her words forging connections. Memories stirred in others like dust caught in sunlight. I remember the winter of '82, Peter chimed in, his eyes brightening with the recollection. Back then, it was more than just crops, it was about caring for one another. We set up a communal kitchen. Everyone contributed what little they had. Rice, bread, vegetables, we made do. We celebrated what we could share instead of lamenting what we lost. The warmth began to grow, spreading like wildfire through the group. Each story spun a new thread into the community's fabric. Eliza noticed Samuel, shifting now, his skeptical shield softening. Those moments shaped us, he admitted finally, his voice barely above a whisper. But the fear, it lingers. I know what it feels like to lose hope. He paused, swallowing hard, as if wrestling with his inner tempest. I lost my brother in the last drought. He was just trying to save our crops. A hush fell over the barn, the thunder now a distant echo. I'm sorry, Eliza said gently, feeling the weight of his sorrow. His expression softened, exposing a vulnerability that was palpable, almost raw. It made me doubt this community, doubt us. How can we face another storm? The pregnant silence seemed to pull everyone closer. Eliza took a step toward him. We make connections, Samuel. Look around. We have each other. We can weather this storm in numbers. You would not be alone. Samuel, caught in her gaze, nodded slowly. The light from outside flickered, casting shadows that danced across faces softened by shared memories and unspoken fears. Then, and stood up again, a determined spark in her young eyes. Remember the story of the old roots. They hold strong, even in the worst storms. It's our bond that will help us grow. A ripple of encouragement surged through the barn. The laughter and chatter returned, weaving a vibrant tapestry of determination and hope. Agatha and Peter began working on sketches for the kitchen plans, others debated how to arrange responsibilities. Eliza felt her heart swell, watching their spirits rise like seedlings pushing through the soil. Tomorrow let us meet to gather supplies and start building that kitchen, okay? She exclaimed, a smile spreading across her face. Thunder rolled again, but this time it felt more like a drumbeat urging them on than a harbinger of doom. Just as everyone geared up for tomorrow, a shadow moved at the barn's entrance. Curiosity tugged at Eliza as a figure stepped through the door, a stranger with weary eyes and clothes that spoke of travel. The collective breath held as they tried to guess who this newcomer could be. Excuse me, the stranger said, voice cracking slightly, I heard talk of a community trying to grow. Is there any way I could join? Eliza exchanged glances with the villagers, and a new wave of anticipation bubbled up within her. Who was this person? What new stories would they bring? With hearts racing, they all huddled closer, ready to embrace whatever uncertainties lay ahead. Could the arrival of this stranger turn the tide, exposing deeper fears and ambitions? Would the garden bloom brighter with their help, or would the storm reveal hidden challenges? The stranger stepped fully into the light, revealing a young woman with dirt-smudged cheeks and streaks of exhaustion etched across her brow. Her hair was unkempt, but her eyes shone with a steadfast resilience that intrigued Eliza. The barn could feel the energy shift, anticipation buzzing in the air like the first notes of a new song. Please, the woman continued, her voice steadier now. My name is Clara. I've traveled far, following rumors of a community ready to support one another. Eliza's heart stirred. There was something magnetic about Clara. Perhaps it was the fortitude in her eyes or the way she dared to hope despite the weary journey she had undertaken. The villagers leaned closer, forming a semicircle around the newcomer, their faces painted with curiosity and a hint of wariness. "We're gathering to share our stories," Eliza said gently, encouraging the atmosphere of openness. "It's a way to strengthen our bond. Would you like to share what led you here?" Clara's features softened, allowing a smile to break through her fatigue. "I grew up in a small village where we faced severe droughts and famine," she began. "We nearly abandoned all hope. Yet, my family found a way. We didn't just rely on crops. My mother started teaching neighbors how to grow herbs in pots and boxes. We tapped into hidden resources, gathered rainwater, and learned to forage." "What happened to your village?" and asked, her innocence cutting through the tension. Clara hesitated, her smile fading as shadows clouded her eyes. The world outside turned harsher. "We were a strong community, but when desperation set in, some chose to turn against others. Trust broke down. I watched my childhood friends leave or worse. I had to go before I lost everything too." A heavy silence hung over the barn, everyone feeling the weight of her loss and strife. "But you didn't lose hope," Eliza encouraged, her heart aching for Clara. "You came here, to us. You're not alone anymore." The warmth returned gradually as Clara recounted tales of her village's resilience. With every word, she boosted the spirits of the villagers. They absorbed her experiences like a sponge, the stories weaving tightly into the fabric of their own struggles. "Together, we can adapt," Clara said, her voice rising with renewed vigor. "If we come together, if we help each other, we can create a sanctuary shelter from the storms around us." The barn erupted with murmurs of agreement. Plans started forming again, fueled by Clara's passion. Agatha cleared her throat. "Maybe we can learn those techniques. It's time to think outside the box." Laughter and chatter filled the air, a variety of ideas swirling together like colors on a painter's palette. Eliza smiled at the brightening spirit that engulfed them, each of them ready to rise anew. "Let us talk more tomorrow," Eliza suggested, optimism flooding her voice. But just as they began to settle, a loud crash reverberated from outside. The sudden sound sliced into their moment of unity, drawing startled gasps from the villagers. "What was that?" Samuel exclaimed, eyes darting toward the barn doors. Eliza felt her pulse quickening. The calm they had built started to disintegrate, fear creeping in once more. "We should check it out," she said, trying to keep her tone steady. As they stepped outside, rain began to pour, transforming the dirt paths into rivulets. The wind howled, reminding them of the storm still lurking on the horizon. Just as they reached the edge of the barn, the figure of a large tree branch sprawled heavily across the ground, but there was more to see. In the distance, another figure emerged, stumbling towards them, soaked and frantic, a cry echoing above the downpour. "Help!" the voice called, filled with desperation. "Please, help!" Eliza turned to the group, her heart racing. Who was this new stranger, and what did their arrival mean for the fragile hope they had started building? The figure grew larger as they approached, each step heavy under the relentless rain. Eliza squinted through the downpour, her heart pounding. The shape was frail, hunched over as if carrying more than just the weight of their body. "Help!" The voice rang out again, desperation lacing every syllable. "Please!" Clara, who had found fresh strength amidst the storm, moved forward. Fearless as the wind whipped around them, she pressed ahead, calling out, "We're here. You're safe now." The villagers, still paralyzed by apprehension, exchanged glances. Could this be another soul desperately seeking refuge? Or was it a sign of something darker, more threatening? Eliza took a step forward, elbowing her way past a few hesitant neighbors. "Come on, everyone. If we're going to build something meaningful, we have to embrace this moment." With both Clara and Eliza leading the charge, the group stepped out into the rain, bracing against the cold droplets pelting their skin. Through the mist, Eliza caught sight of the newcomer's face, pale, streaked with mud, and shadowed by a mess of tangled hair. But it was the eyes that struck her the hardest. They were wild but shone with an unmistakable glint of hope. As they closed the distance, the person collapsed to their knees, gasping for breath. I thought I wouldn't make it," the stranger wheezed. Eliza crouched beside them, the rain soaking through her clothes, but she felt nothing but urgency. "You're safe now," she whispered, pushing back her own fears. "What's your name?" "Isaac," he murmured, looking up, eyes wide and glassy. "I've been running. From the hunger, from the chaos. It's everywhere." A weighted silence followed his words. They all knew what he meant. The dread had settled in their village, too. It felt like a dark cloud, creeping and wrapping itself around their hearts. "Why are you all alone?" Clara asked gently, kneeling beside Eliza. I was in a camp, a place where we tried to gather and survive. But the resources dwindled. It got dangerous. People, they turned on each other." His voice wavered, echoing Clara's own reflection from moments before. Eliza felt her stomach twist. They were all raw and fragile, teetering on the edge of despair. "You didn't have anyone with you?" Isaac shook his head, tears mingling with the rain on his cheeks. "I lost my sister. I don't know where she is. I just had to get away." The pain in his voice ignited something deep within Eliza. She glanced at Clara, whose expression mirrored her own, a mix of empathy and determination. They had to rally their community around him, they had to protect him, and maybe, find his sister too. "Let us get him inside," Clara urged, rising to her feet. "We can help him, we can help each other." Eliza nodded, her resolve strengthening. They started guiding Isaac towards the barn, when suddenly, the wind howled louder, carrying echoes of distant voices. Unease washed over her. "More are coming," Samuel murmured, spotting silhouettes in the rain. "Are they friends or foes?" Eliza whispered to Clara, her heart racing again. In that moment, she understood the fragile thread they walked on. A community built on hope and trust was about to be tested in ways they hadn't imagined. "Whatever happens next, we face it together," Clara said, her words sending a spark through the group. Eliza held Isaac's hand tightly, squeezing it in solidarity, as rain continued to pour down. The sense of dread was palpable, but so was the rising tide of unity. With renewed hope flickering in their hearts, they braced for whatever lay ahead, ready to confront their fate. Just then, the first figure stepped into the light of the barn, revealing a menacing look that made Eliza's heart drop. Who had followed Isaac? And what did they want from this vulnerable little haven they had started to call home? The figure stepped into the warm, flickering light of the barn, the glow illuminating a gaunt face marked by shadows and wild hair. Eliza's heart raced as the storm outside seemed to quiet momentarily, the tension thickening the air as the newcomers assessed the gathered villagers. They were 4 in total, each appearing as weary and lost as Isaac. "What do you want?" Clara called out, her voice steady despite the pounding of rain drowning everything else. The leader of the group, a tall man with broad shoulders and a rough stubble, tilted his head, his eyes narrowing. "We heard there were people here. People who made it through the worst." His tone was gravelly, edged with something Eliza couldn't identify, desperation or perhaps something darker. Isaac flinched, squeezing Eliza's hand tighter. Without speaking, the villagers formed a united front, shoulders straightening and chins lifting in a silent pact of solidarity. "What do you mean by made it through?" one villager asked, stepping forward, his voice quaking. The tall man smirked, a flicker of amusement mixed with malice crossing his features. "You've got a warm place, food, and supplies," he said, glancing over at the crates pushed against the barn's wall. "We're just looking to share your fortune." Eliza and Clara exchanged a worried glance. Fear coiled in Eliza's gut. It was one thing to help Isaac, it was another to invite in potential danger. "We've got enough for ourselves," Clara replied firmly. "You should keep looking." Laughter erupted from the group, rough and unkind. "You may not have a choice," the tall man countered, stepping closer. "We don't intend to leave empty-handed." Cold fingers of dread ran down Eliza's spine. This was it, the moment her village would face the nightmare they had kept at bay. In the past months, they fought not only hunger but the fear of losing what little they had left. "Please," Isaac pleaded, his voice cracking. "We can work together. There's strength in numbers. We all want to survive." The tall man shrugged. "What's left of your strength?" He gestured at the villagers, their eyes filled with uncertainty. "You should be asking yourself that." Eliza could see the flicker of doubt spread through the group. They were vulnerable, raw from their struggles. But amidst the swirling emotions, something deep inside ignited a fire, a reminder of why they had come together in the first place. They had built this community from the ground up, through tears and laughter. "United we stand," Eliza called out, stepping forward despite her shaking knees. "We will not let fear dictate our choices. You can either join us peacefully, or you can turn away." The barn fell into a heavy silence, tension taut like a drawn bowstring. The newcomers exchanged glances, concern dawning now in their expressions. But before a response could be given, a sudden loud crash resounded from the outside, something colliding with the barn door. Alex, one of the elder villagers, bolted to the entrance, flinging it wide open. There stood a wave of more figures, eyes glinting with the same wild desperation Eliza had seen in Isaac. "We need help," one shouted, throwing hands up. "Please. We can't go back." Eliza's heart raced again. This was not just about defending their home. More people meant more fear but also, potentially, more hope. "How do we know they'll bring chaos like the others?" Another villager asked, the weight of apprehension palpable. Isaac stepped up beside Eliza, his voice stronger now. "They might be lost, just like I was. We've got to decide who we want to be in this moment." The atmosphere crackled with tension and possibility. Eliza's breath hitched. Did this mean their sanctuary was opening to chaos? Or could it bloom into something even stronger? As she looked at the faces of her community, she felt that fragile thread again, stretching so thin it could snap at any moment. The decision lay heavy in the air, a lingering question that begged to be answered. What would they choose? And would it bind them together, or tear them apart? Eliza stood in the dim barn, the air thick with uncertainty. The rain poured outside, a relentless reminder of the chaos they faced. Her heart raced as she surveyed the group, her friends, her family, her community. Faces filled with fear flickered between apprehension and determination. The newcomers stood uncertainly, caught between despair and hope. The tall man emerged as their leader, his posture a contradiction of menace and desperation. "You think you can be a shelter, a sanctuary?" he asked, a sardonic smile creeping onto his lips. "Only if you're prepared to share what you've fought so hard to keep." Eliza felt a tight knot of resolve form in her chest. "We are all struggling," she said, her voice steady. "But what if we offer what we can? We can be stronger together." "But how can we trust you?" A murmured voice came from the back, a voice threaded with doubt. Eliza turned to Samuel, whose stare was intense and piercing. "What if they turn on us like the others did?" The tall man stepped closer. "Because we're not enemies." His voice softened. "We've lost too. We're just looking for a way to survive. Just like you." Isaac's grip tightened on Eliza's hand. She glanced at him, feeling his nervous energy. "What if they lead us into a trap?" He whispered, eyes darting around the barn. "This is our moment of choice," Clara said, her voice rising to drown out the murmurs. "We can risk our fears, or we can turn away like those who deserted us." She stepped toward the newcomers, her eyes fierce and unyielding. We choose love, not mistrust. The more we deny others a chance, the more we endanger our own future. The wind howled outside, but within the barn, a wave of silence settled over the group. The tension hung in the air, taut as a drawn bowstring. Would they tear apart, or come together in some profound way? Eliza took a deep breath, steeling her resolve. "We'll take you in," she declared, her heart pounding. "But this can't be a one-way path. You have to contribute, share your strengths. We grow together or not at all." The tall man nodded slowly, the smirk fading from his face. "Agreed." His voice held a hint of surprise, and with it came a flicker of respect. The others around him exchanged cautious glances, perhaps feeling a semblance of hope for the first time. Right there, in that moment, a shift occurred. Eliza felt warmth radiate from the villagers, back into the very bones of the barn. "Let us gather everyone," she urged, moving toward the barn doors. "Let us welcome those who need us, and together we'll share ideas, skills, hopes." The newcomers hesitated on the threshold, uncertainty still etched on their faces. "What do you have to offer?" Clara called to them, her voice steady, holding the weight of the moment. "We can learn from each other. Survival means sharing our resources, our knowledge. Will you help us plant that garden?" Slowly, the tall man stepped forward again. "I can help build the shelter," he said, his tone now tinged with determination. "We need a place to store food." Eliza nodded fervently, heart racing with possibility. Cries echoed from outside, more figures arriving, lost souls seeking community, seeking solace in the storm. "Join us!" shouted one of the newcomers, stepping with eagerness toward the already formed group. "We do not ask for handouts, we come to work." Eliza felt her heart swell, a sense of unity accumulating within the wood-planked walls of the old barn, a birth of something altogether new. Would the storm allow it to thrive? As the villagers moved closer, whispering to one another in excited tones, she stepped forward. "Let this moment mark the beginning of our shared journey." Nods and murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd like the swells of a horizon. Hearts beating together, a rhythm emerging stronger than before, the strangers stepped into the barn, accepted. Today would be the first day of their renewed community. The path would be fraught with challenges, and undoubtedly storms would come again, but Eliza felt hope blooming like a garden in spring. Together, they could scatter seeds of trust among the uncertainty, watering them with the strength of their unity. They could withstand whatever tempests awaited, the storms in their hearts and the rain that soaked the ground. And there, amongst the gathering voices, Eliza felt a glimmer of warmth wash over her, a reminder of her father's words, echoing bright and clear, "Together, we thrive." They would live that truth anew, growing flowers amidst the thorns. And with that thought, she knew they would face the coming storms. Together, hands joined, hope unwavering, strength born of unity, they embraced one another as families, as friends, a collective heartbeat amid the driving rain. This was not only a refusal to yield to fear, but a declaration to thrive, no matter the odds. She turned to the sky, darkened but still filled with promise. The dawn was not far off, and they would see it together. Subscribing to this journey meant surrendering fear, sharing laughter, and daring to hope. Would they plant those seeds? Would they thrive? And that was the moment she knew, the most beautiful transformation was not just hers, but theirs, a radical change from within, an expanse of light and possibility, ready to burst forth in endless blooms. But now, she turned to you, dear friend. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that await. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us grow this community together. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. Your voice matters in this journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. They need to feel this hope and strength in their lives. This is the moment to show your support, so don't wait not even one more second to share. Your support helps us blossom.